The first scream of the dark night. Ethan was an ordinary boy who lived in a small town in New Jersey. His life was completely normal, but that Halloween night was about to change everything. Ethan went out to see a dilapidated, old house outside the city with his friend Jason. People said that this house was a place of shadows and screams. But the two decided to find out the truth. As soon as they approached the house, a strange cold wind swept over their bodies, and the doors started opening automatically. There was a terrible smell in the air that made their hearts beat faster. As soon as Ethan stepped inside the house, he felt that someone was following them. The walls of one room were covered in blood stains, and old missing persons reports were recorded on the newspapers scattered on the floor. Ethan picked up a journal, which read, "Whoever comes here never comes back. It was too late when I left this house. No one can know this secret." Jason shook his head and said, "These are not just stories. Something is real." At that moment, the doors of the house slammed shut, and whispering sounds began to come from the walls. A cold wind washed over his body. Ethan dared to open a room, which had an old mirror. His reflection in the mirror was not ordinary. His eyes were completely black, and there were blood stains on his face, as if an invisible being had hidden inside him. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared behind them. Its scream was not human, but a voice that could shake the soul. Jason grabbed Ethan's hand tightly. "Silence. It is watching us." Every moment, more secrets were coming out in the darkness of the house. The walls were moving on their own, and the traces of blood on the ground were guiding an invisible being. Ethan dared to say, "We have to get out of here. We'll tell the police tomorrow morning." But Jason's face was filled with both fear and curiosity. The night had shown all its colors, but the terrifying truth hidden in the darkness of the house had yet to be revealed, and Ethan's life had changed forever. In the hidden depths of the house. After the first night, both Ethan and Jason had the same thing on their minds, the house and its inner secrets. But now they knew that it wasn't just stories. The house itself was a living, breathing entity. The next night, the two decided to go to the oldest part of the house. The townspeople were terrified, but neither Ethan's curiosity nor Jason's fear could stop them from going back. As soon as they stepped inside the house, there was a strange smell in the air, the smell of old decay and the smell of an endlessly burning candle. The walls seemed darker than before, and the drops of rain falling from the ceiling made a strange rustling sound. "I think we should leave this all behind," Jason said. Ethan shook his head. "We can't back down now. We have to find out the truth." Stepping into the rooms, they saw the door to an old underground room, which was covered in some incomprehensible markings. The door opened and closed loudly, as if the house itself wanted no one to enter. The room was silent, but there was a whisper in the air. "It's impossible to return from here. Someone is after you." Ethan looked at Jason, and both of them heard their heartbeats. Blood stains on the floor were slowly growing, and a shadow was emerging from the wall and moving towards them. Jason said loudly, "This is not just a shadow. This is the image of our own selves." Ethan saw that with each step the shadow was reflecting their actions. Old fears, sins, and hidden secrets were all coming to light. Suddenly, a scream came from the underground, such that the walls shook. A strange tree-like entity appeared before them, its branches as if they had turned into hands, and eyes peering into them. Ethan dared to speak to the tree. "We came here for the truth." The tree's voice rang in his ears. "The truth? The truth is what you can't bear." The shadows began to move around them, and the room began to shiver with the intense cold. Jason grabbed Ethan's hand tightly and said, "We have to leave now, or the house will keep us forever." There were more ghosts, shadows, and screams hidden in the world inside. Ethan and Jason realized that this house was alive, and it would not let anyone leave. In the silence of the night, they realized for the first time that this terrible house was not just a building but a living prison, imprisoning souls. The truth lost in the darkness. Ethan and Jason had reached the oldest and most mysterious part of the house. Before their eyes, the walls were covered with blood stains, strange marks, and traces that seemed to be constantly moving. As they entered the underground room, Old human traces appeared on the floor, as if they were being guided by an unseen being. Ethan said loudly, "This has never been here before. This house itself is misleading us." Jason put his hands over his ears and said, "These voices, these screams, I hear them coming to get us." Suddenly, the light in the room began to dim, and the walls seemed to be getting closer. A whisper-like voice said, "You opened the doors. Now you are here forever." Ethan pulled himself together and said, "We will get out of here. Nothing can stop us." But as he turned around, a strange halo-like shadow appeared in the room near, whose eyes were red and bright and spread like smoke with every movement. The shadow began to move around them and leave its imprints on the walls. Ethan saw that the shadow was turning his hidden fears and memories into reality. Memories that he had once wanted to forget came alive on Jason's face. The cries of a small child, old accidents, and hidden secrets. Suddenly, an old box appeared from the underground room. Inside it was an ancient book on which was written, "Whoever opens this book will see the truth of the house and never return." With the book in Ethan's hands, every shadow in the room began to come to life. The walls gradually took on human shapes, mimicking Ethan and Jason's movements. Jason said loudly, "We must leave this and run." But Ethan said, "We will find out the truth, no matter what." As the pages of the book were turned, a sharp light filled the room, and everything turned into a mirror. Ethan saw that the house was not just a house, but a prison for every soul, where beings gained strength by keeping the fears of humans alive. As they entered the inner world, Ethan and Jason felt that the house was imprisoning them not only physically, but also spiritually. And at that moment, the pages of the book began to turn on their own, and a dark shadow moved directly towards Ethan. Spirits hidden behind the darkness. Ethan and Jason were standing in the basement of a house. The pages of the book were turning automatically, and every word was drawing lines of fear in their hearts. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. The walls were shaking, and a shadowy figure began to fall down from the ceiling. Its voice was not the cry of a single person, but the combined cry of thousands of souls. Jason held Ethan's hand tightly and said, "We must get out of here." But Ethan looked at the book and said, "This is the answer to our reality. We will find out what this house is hiding." On one page of the book, there was an old map. It indicated every wall of the house, every room, and a hidden basement. After seeing the map, Jason said, "This is even more dangerous. There is a basement where no one has ever been." Ethan and Jason decided that they would go to this basement. As they stepped in, the air was cold and dark, and a small scream echoed in their ears with every breath. As they entered the basement, Ethan saw that the ground was littered with ancient human bones and bloodstains. Fear was evident on Jason's face, but Ethan dared to move forward. Suddenly, a large shadowy figure blocked their path. Its eyes were black pits, and its body became smoke spreading in the air. Ethan shouted, "We only want to know the truth." The figure replied in a whisper-like voice, "The truth? Are you ready to face your fears?" At that moment, the walls of the basement began to move, and images of their childhood fears and past sins emerged. Ethan and Jason saw that the house imprisoned not only on a physical level, but also on a spiritual level. On one side, a shadow took the form of Jason and stood in front of Ethan. The distinction between reality and shadow was erased. Ethan closed his eyes and said, "We have to get out." But as they moved, the light from the book shone on them, and the basement turned into a dark corridor where hidden spirits screamed everywhere. Ethan felt that they were now imprisoned not only physically but also spiritually. Everything in the house was alive and was destroying them by turning every fear into the ultimate limit of fear. Ethan and Jason were now completely trapped in the basement. There was darkness and screams everywhere. The walls were slowly taking on human shapes, and bloodstains on the ground moved with their footsteps. Ethan said, "We have to get out quickly. This place will not leave us alive." But Jason said tremblingly, "The further we go, the more our fears will become reality." An old mirror lay in a corner of the basement, in which they saw their reflections. But these reflections were not their real faces. Eyes blank, faces black, and blood was flowing from their mouths. Suddenly, a large shadowy figure appeared from under the ground. Its body was a mixture of smoke and shadow, and with each step, a storm of screams was created in the underground air. Ethan jumped up and grabbed the book, on which a page opened. Whoever gets out of here, if he wants to get out, he will have to face his greatest fear. As he read the page, every fear Ethan and Jason had ever felt became reality. Jason saw the cries of the little child, old accidents, and hidden secrets come alive in the room. Ethan dared to say, "We must confront them." But the shadow blocked their path with a loud scream, and the spirits hiding in the darkness on the floor of the room began to circle around them. Each spirit transformed into a small, strange, and terrifying being and began to crawl towards Jason. Ethan turned the pages of the book and made out a natural light, which was creating a safe passage between the shadow and the spirits. Running, they reached another room, where the walls were covered with blood stains and the stains of human hands. Ethan felt that this house was imprisoning not only physically, but also spiritually. Jason said loudly, "We will not survive, Will." But Ethan decided that he would use the power of the book to unravel the house's secrets. As Ethan read the last page of the book, darkness fell, the screams fell silent, and for a moment the room was quiet. But both knew that this was only a temporary peace. The house showed its dark power once again, and Ethan and Jason felt that they were still trapped by the house, but now they had the power. The rebellion of souls. Ethan and Jason felt safe for a while with the light of the book, but this peace did not last long. A terrible rustling echoed in the basement, and living hands began to emerge from the walls and move towards them. Jason said tremblingly, "This place will never leave us." Ethan replied, "We have faced fear before. Now we must move forward." As they moved forward, the pages of the book began to turn automatically, and a dark shadow emerged that was transforming their greatest memories and fears into reality. Ethan saw that the screams of the little child, old accidents, and hidden secrets came to life before him. For a moment, Jason looked into Ethan's eyes, not in his true form, but in the form of fear created by the power of the book. Ethan knew that the house was now their prey, not just physically, but spiritually as well. Suddenly, a wall in the basement collapsed, and a brutal, the shadowy entity appeared, black smoke and human screams coming from its body. It lunged at Jason, and Jason screamed. Ethan used the book's power to create a bright beam of light, which pushed the entity back. But during the test, Ethan realized that the book's power was limited and that he himself was becoming weaker with each use. The house showed another shocking twist. A hidden layer opened from under the floor, in which millions of years-old souls were alive, and they were moving towards Ethan and Jason. Jason shouted, "We will not survive." Ethan replied, "We will not give up. This house cannot take our souls." On the last pages of the book it was written, "Whoever wants to know the truth must be ready to face his fears." Ethan took a bold step and sacrificed his soul on the pages of the book. The light spread, the shadow moved away, and the souls calmed down a little. But both knew that this was only temporary peace. The secrets of the house were the last manifestation of the house. Ethan and Jason had now entered the most dangerous part of the house. Despite the light of the book, darkness and shadows swirled around them, and with every step, screams and whispers descended into their hearts. Jason said tremblingly, "This place will take our souls too." Ethan replied, "We have faced fear before. Now we must unravel the mystery of the house." Deep in the basement was an ancient locked room containing a large black shadowy entity. Its eyes were red and bright, and with every movement, thousands of screams echoed in the underground air. Ethan opened the book and read the last sentences. "Whoever wants to get out of here must face their greatest terrifying reality." As the pages of the book turned, every fear Ethan and Jason had ever felt turned into reality. Jason watched as the screams of the little child, old accidents, and hidden secrets came alive before him. The house revealed a shocking twist. A storm of spirits emerged from under the floor, rushing towards the two of them. Ethan knew that the power of the book alone was no longer enough. Ethan decided that he would sacrifice a part of his soul and destroy the house. As he stepped forward, the light of the book turned into a ferocious thread of light, crushing every shadow, every terrifying being. But the house revealed its final manifestation, a shadow that took the form of Jason and appeared before Ethan. Ethan stepped forward despite his fear, and the light of the book transformed the shadow into reality and destroyed it. The locked room was quiet, but Ethan felt that without the power of the book and its sacrifice, the house would always live. Jason sat down on the ground, exhausted, and both of them knew. The last secret of the darkness. Ethan and Jason finally reached the innermost part of the house. There were shadows, screams, and bloodstains everywhere inside the basement, and the light from the book was slowly fading. Ethan said to Jason, "This is the last chance. We have to finish the house's secret." Jason replied tremblingly, "This place is alive. She won't let us out alive." Inside the locked room, the largest shadowy figure appeared, a figure that was the embodiment of every soul hidden in the book. Its eyes were red, black smoke came from its mouth, and the room came alive with every step. Ethan read the last page of the book. Anyone who would leave here must face their greatest fear and reality. Suddenly, every shadow in the room came to life. The cries of a small child, hidden accidents, and old spirits began to swirl around them. Jason shouted, "We have to run now." But Ethan gathered his courage and put the book on the ground. The light from the book spread like a savage explosion, crushing every being, every shadow, and every terrifying being. But there was one final twist. Jason himself was trapped in the light of the book, and the shadowy figure captured his soul. Ethan took a deep breath and ran outside. The walls of the house slowly, normalcy returned, and the screams died down. But Ethan knew that this was only a temporary peace. The house was alive, and every terrible secret still lurked within it. Ethan came out, body wounded and spirit exhausted, but he was alive. He held the book tightly and promised not to tell anyone the terrible truth of the house. In the stillness of the night, Ethan looked back. The house was silent now, but its dark shadows still waited for someone at every moment. And he knew that this was only the beginning. CreepyMcPasta horror series ended, but the Fae